Welcome, Topeka Insiders, episode number 12. Today, I have the privilege of having John Paul Washburn, attorney here in town, come on the show. And John Paul, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you in person. Finally.
Got your name right?
Yeah.
John is a family person, and John Paul is an attorney here in town, specializing in family practice. And he's a father of two and a husband, a loving person, and good-looking person as well. So I love your suit today.
Appreciate it.
Welcome again, John Paul.
Thank you for having me.
So
really appreciate it.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got into the law practice world? And because you mentioned that you have some really profound stories to share.
Sure.
Yeah. That's from there.
No, that's a great way to dive in. So, most people, they go to college, they don't know what they want to do. But it just so happens in 8th grade, I had a history teacher and an English teacher who, kind of co-taught. We were in separate classrooms, but we co-taught. And so history, we were doing the Dred Scott cases. And then in English, we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird. And so the great stories of To Kill a Mockingbird and the lawyering that went on there. And so that really piqued my interest. And from then in high school, I did some mock trial things with one of the schools that I went to in high school. And then I continued on doing that in college. But, by the time I landed in college, I was government pre-law. I was beelining to become a lawyer. And really, it's all credited to great teachers that I had. History teacher and English teacher in 8th grade. So, I would call myself fortunate to know what I wanted to do in my life, like from a very young age. I just it was a passion that sparked inside of me, and so it's been fun to see that walk out. Here I am, 41 years old, and
you do not look 41.
It's 41 in August, I guess. The new baby's got the time fast forwarding on me, but no, it really says a lot about teachers, really, honestly, on how great of an impact a teacher can have on a youth's life. So that's the story. I mean, in a nutshell, at least.
Right. So the reason why you guys are seeing a Golden Gate Bridge background is because that's a little tribute I want to give John and to his home state, California, as well.
I appreciate it.
So that's the second question. Like, how did you end up in Topeka, Kansas area?
Oh, that's a great question. So I was born and raised in California. As I was looking at colleges, I was looking at a lot of California colleges. But I grew up in a Christian home, and someone had recommended Oral Roberts University to me, and that's in Tulsa. And so I thought, well, I'll look at it. I was looking at a couple of Christian universities down in the Los Angeles area. And so I went on a college weekend visit and just fell in love with the campus and the people from the Midwest. And so I ended up doing what none of my friends in California did, which is just completely leave the state, leave their families, leave their friends, and went out to Tulsa and really had the time of my life there. I mean, Oral Roberts was an excellent experience. And then from then on, I thought I was going to go back to California to go to law school. Did the same thing, applied to schools there, got into some schools there. And then at the last minute, I decided that I would come up to Topeka and go to Washburn University School of Law. And really what caught me at Washburn were the same things that caught me at Oral Roberts. So the students and the people, and then the faculty was just, they really made you feel at home. The atmosphere was really collegial. And, I've called Topeka home since 2004. So it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's almost 2 decades.
2 decades. I've been in Topeka longer than I was in California, believe it or not. And so it's, I love the Midwest. I wouldn't have done it any other way.
What a story, John Paul. What a story.
Still like to visit California, but
that's amazing story you just shared.
Thanks, man.
Before we jump on the camera here, me and John Paul were talking that Washburn Law is one of the top 10 in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I know quite a few people graduated from Washburn Law, and I feel like it's a huge privilege and advantage for a lot of local people here. You can just go down the street and go to a law school here.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is a gem here in Kansas. There are other, KU Law is great, UMKC. But what Washburn has really done is taken advantage of the Topeka being the capital city, and they have a new emphasis, or relatively new emphasis in government law. You may or may not know this, but a third of the lawyers in Topeka actually work for the government. And so there are about 1,800 lawyers, give or take, in Shawnee County, and about 600, or give or take, work for the government. So it really made sense, I think, for the university to set up that government specific practice. But the staff and the deans there, and the professors and the students, I mean, are second to none, in my opinion. It's a small school feel with an Ivy League type education that you're getting there. The one-on-one attention that the professors offer is excellent. I ran into my legal writing professor who taught me my very first year of law school. And coincidentally, that was his first year, Professor Jeff Jackson. I ran into him earlier this year, and he's now the dean of the law school. So, it comes full circle. But the nice thing is the faculty and staff, they're loyal there. They stay there, and they really are invested in the students' lives.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing, John Paul. So I'm going to send this video to Mr. Jeff. He said Jeff Jackson is
Jeff Jackson.
Yes, I remember the old dean.
Absolutely.
Free advertising for Washburn Law, by the way, what
Right.
you just said.
Well, hey, Dean Romig did a great job, and Professor Kincannon, who was a former dean, he just passed away, and there were a lot of articles that came out because he was just like, he was a guru. I remember having him when we were in law school, and he forgot more than most lawyers know. And it's just a tribute. Like,
Wow.
The faculty at Washburn are nationally recognized for the things that they do. And it really is a family type atmosphere that you may not, be able to recreate in some of these other perhaps more well-known institutions.
Wow. John Paul, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So next, I have to bring up this question because after reading through your bio, you specialize in family law. You've done a lot of awesome work through TBA and KBA.
Sure.
An award-winning attorney, by the way, if you guys don't know. I'll link his website under this video after upload it. So what got you into this specialty? Like, what really piqued your interest into this? Because I don't know any other attorney, I mean, myself personally, who would be an advocate for that area.
That's a great story too. So first things first, in Kansas, and I should have told you this beforehand, but in Kansas, they don't allow us to say that we specialize in an area. So I prefer to say, like, I focus on family law. It's my primary area of practice. It's an advertising thing that they don't want us to call ourselves specialists, because I think it leads the public to believe that maybe we have a magic wand that we just don't have. But cool. No, so in law school, I really thought that I was going to be a business transactional law attorney. In fact, I went through Washburn's program that they have to focus on getting a business and transactional law certificate. And when I graduated, it was the height of the recession, so 2007, 2008, and I couldn't find a job. And it took me almost a year to find a job. The first job I ever got was representing parents when their kids are placed in foster care. And I started doing that, and I still do that to this day. I fell in love with it. And it has a natural link to family law, divorce, and those sorts of things. And so those were the cases that started coming in the door, helping people with, setting up parenting plans for parents who are never married, or helping people through a difficult time like a divorce, or even doing a guardianship or an adoption for some families. And so the crazy thing is that when I was in law school, my focus wasn't trial work. My focus wasn't opening my own office, and it certainly wasn't family law. But it's funny how life works. And those are the things that I do now. And, 15 years in business later, I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. I've been very fortunate to be able to be in the position that I'm in to hopefully make a positive difference in people's lives.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Quite a story.
Yeah.
Sometimes things happen for a reason, right?
100%. Yeah. It's a little bit more than just happenstance, that's for sure.
So out of so many cases, of course, there's some confidential information you can't share.
Of course.
What is one or two cases that really stand out to you as far as impact, and you feel like, because sometimes like maybe when you close the case, you just see that smile from the family, on their faces. What has been one of those situations or two of those situations where that you feel like, wow, I mean, what I did or what I've done was 100% worth it?
Sure, absolutely. Remind me to circle back to one of these pro bono stories later when you ask about that.
Okay.
But honestly, court appointed work can be very challenging. But like I said, I still represent parents whose kids get taken into foster care, maybe even have truant teenagers who don't like to go to high school. And so I'm court appointed to them in that process. And honestly, the cases that stand out most to me are people who, can't afford an attorney for whatever reason, but are just appreciative of the work that I do for them, going to bat for them in court, guiding them through the process of hopefully getting their kids back if their kids are placed into foster care. And, those provide just a lot of value really to me and reinforce the reason why I do what I do. And so those families are going through one of the most difficult times in their lives, having their kids removed. And so to help them be able to have their kid returned under probably some very challenging circumstances, and just to have them be appreciative at the end says a lot, that it keeps me coming back. And that's why I still do that work 15 years later.
Wow. That made me speechless. I mean, just felt like, because I could just kind of relate to that. And then I'm assuming that you have made a lot of impact in this community just from doing that.
Sure.
People might not really
hopefully
see that on the social media platform, but word of mouth, I think,
Hopefully. And I mean, here's a plug, there are 6 attorneys in Shawnee County that do, it's called child needed care representation. And so there's 6 attorneys who represent parents, and then there are also 6 attorneys who represent the best interest of the child. And as a panel in Shawnee County, I would say over half of them have been doing that type of work for even longer than I have. So it just really goes to show that in Shawnee County and Topeka, there are just multiple dedicated attorneys who may not be doing the glamorous work, but they're doing the necessary work to help families either reunify or, help kids find a permanent home when they come under circumstances where their parents can't, have them back. And they're challenging cases, but they can be rewarding. I've learned really from some great attorneys on that panel who do court appointed work. And sometimes court appointed attorneys get a bad rap, and sometimes people will say we're not real attorneys, or I want a paid attorney, etc. But one of my mentors was a court appointed attorney, and I learned so much from being under their wing. And it's being an attorney is a lot about being mentored and then mentoring. It's a process that really doesn't sustain itself unless you're willing to give what you've received, from the older generations or the more experienced attorneys, for sure.
That makes total sense. I mean, that's just so generous for you to share that aspect where mentorship that goes on in your profession.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now this brings up to the next question I'd like to ask you, John Paul. So what are some of the key factors individuals should consider when selecting an attorney to represent them?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
even for the people here in Shawnee County, I'm assuming there's going to be viewers outside the state of Kansas. If they're seeking legal counseling or something like that, what some of the key factors you think they should consider as far as their attorneys?
100%. What I tell people when they call my office, or if they're just asking for a friend sort of thing, is you've got to have a high level of trust with the attorney that you're selecting. And so I might be the best attorney that your friends used, or another attorney down the street might be the best attorney that your friends use. But If you don't feel like it's a good fit, like from just a personality standpoint or an expectation standpoint, then it's not a good fit. And so usually what I suggest is to call around and interview 2 to 3 attorneys and go with a person that feels like the best fit for you. And someone who you can trust, someone who is going to go to bat for your objectives, and someone who sets the right expectations. And as attorneys, we can't promise a result on a case. It's not ethical for us to do that. But it's so helpful to set reasonable expectations with clients about what you can and cannot do for them, to be honest and upfront with them to the best of our ability, so that they can understand what they're going to get through the process.
Wow, amazing information. So John Paul, what have you been doing in order to stay along with the trends in your practice and on top of the technology or information? What have you been doing to just really have that edge for your clients?
Absolutely. No, so practice has changed significantly even since I started, back in 2007, 2008. Lawyers are required to take 12 hours of training annually. And so, we're required to stay up to speed. But thankfully, I take advantage of more training than that. But I think just understanding what client needs are. I mean, today's society is kind of an Amazon one-click society. And I think that sometimes, people may expect that from an attorney that they're selecting. And so I think it's just about really managing the expectations and knowing, what the clients like and what you can deliver, and if really that's a good fit. Because you want to be true to yourself. I don't want to be the lawyer down the street, and I don't think that they want to be me. And so I have to be authentic, and I have to find ways to just continue to sharpen my skills. If I'm not learning, then I'm regressing. And you've got to stay on top of the law. And so there's just so much content out there that really there's no excuse not to be leading edge if you really want to be a leading edge. And of course, it's a work in progress, especially for someone like me with a smaller firm. But I try to cater to clients on an individual basis and tailor my representation to their specific need. There shouldn't be any cookie cutter case or any cookie cutter client, because each family and their goals are specific, and no two clients are alike, if that makes sense.
Sure, 100%. And I was really impressed by your website. That ties into how you staying on top of the practice and the technology, because your scheduling system is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, you got to call me 500 times so you can get a hold of my receptionist so we can schedule something, right? One click, which is the Amazon strategy you were talking about. That was quite something.
Yeah,
I really like that.
The website's great. I'm fortunate enough to have some connections with the people at Mammoth, and they do top-notch work, and so they put together a website for me that really represents who I am and what I try to accomplish for the clients. And I didn't want to create something that wasn't authentic to who I am, what my goals are, and what I think I can accomplish for people who want to trust me with their situation.
Awesome. Well, let's touch on this next question a little bit, since you are really kind of generous on mentoring the next generation. And a lot of young people come to Topeka, especially Washburn Law, to become the next generation attorneys. If somebody's considering getting into a law practice or a law field, what would you recommend, or some aspects they consider before they devote or get into that
Absolutely
field?
Well, do your homework, of course. Being a lawyer is not for everyone. Going through law school itself is a pretty rigorous it's a rigorous event, and it's not for the faint of heart, but it's very rewarding at the end. But having a law degree can suit people more than just practicing law. So I know some very bright people who went through law school and now they're not practicing attorneys, they're lobbyists or they're doing other things with their career. So it's, law school teaches you skills that you probably wouldn't have otherwise, with just being able to think and problem solve. But in terms of just preparing to go to law school or considering whether you should do it, the biggest thing that I would suggest is something that I didn't necessarily do myself, is just diversify your interest in undergrad. And so what I mean by that is I was government pre-law because I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, but I think focusing on other classes or other topics or areas of interest would have probably helped me be more well-rounded in the way that I learned in law school. And so, yeah, to be a lawyer, you don't have to necessarily just be the government political science type mold. I think the people that do well in law school are sometimes people that are English majors or, even engineers, people that have critical thinking skills and diversified backgrounds. So, that's a great way to prepare. Don't just do something because you think it's going to be glamorous. Do something because you think you might love it and are able to make a difference in people's lives.
That's exactly what you've been doing in our community, John Paul. So
I try.
Yeah, John Paul has done a lot of pro bono work for unprivileged population. So thank you so much for doing that for our communities.
Absolutely.
So why do you think it's so important for you specifically, or other attorneys or legal professions, to do pro bono work in our communities or in their communities? What's the importance of that?
100%. Well, our attorney ethics suggests that we do at least 50 hours annually of pro bono work as a way to just give back to the community. But really, beyond that, the reality is that not everyone can afford a lawyer. And usually you need a lawyer when you don't think you're going to need a lawyer. And so having the resources and the time available to dedicate to pro bono work can just make an impact in people's lives that really, can help them achieve a result that they may not have been able to achieve without a lawyer. So, the state's done a really good job recently of providing resources for people to navigate through the legal system without an attorney. But I'm a big fan of, having representation when you're going through the legal process. It just makes so much of a difference, in my opinion, in most cases. And so if I can help someone out for free, because I've scheduled my time and my resources, then, I'm more than happy to do that. So, I've got a standing policy within my office when I do mediations is that, if I'm working with Kansas Legal Services or Washburn University School of Law and they have a mediation they want to send to my office, I 100% always reduce the fee.
Wow.
Because they're doing a service to people who can't afford, attorneys. And so I'm going to give back to them by, trying to help their clients. And so that's just one of the ways that I try to make a difference in the community, is by donating my time and energy to the cases that I can. Honestly, if I could, and I've told my wife this before, if I could practice law for free, I would do it because I like it that much. And, as a lawyer, I'm kind of wired to want to be able to help everyone. Everyone who calls, I would like to be able to help them, and it would be nice to be able to help them for free. And that's obviously not a reality in with what I do. But when I can help people out and I don't have to charge them, I appreciate the opportunity to serve in that way.
Wow, that's just breath of fresh air that you just shared. Because John Paul, I feel like now that leads right into this next question I want to touch on, because for the general public, I feel like, not me personally, I feel a lot of people have a different view or a different concept or I think they see attorneys a little bit differently. I think especially this conversation, I think it's going to go a long ways to really make an impact or positive impact on the communities or general public. They don't have a lot of interaction with attorneys. because I don't think a lot of people would have a conversation like this with any attorney, right? Sit
Sure.
down, just talk on a personal level. So now you're gonna correct some of the misconceptions most people would have about the legal professional attorneys.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting into, because I feel like most people that I knew from the past or younger generation, they felt like attorneys make a lot of money. What is true? What is true, because they get what they pay for, right, or deserve. There's nothing wrong with that. But the pro bono work you just mentioned, that I don't feel like a lot of people knew about that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So some of the misconceptions, can you touch on a few, like the stories that you had or heard from the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think people would probably be, they may be surprised to know that I'm sure that almost every attorney out there writes off a portion of their work or doesn't charge for everything that they do, on top of doing pro bono stuff. But misconceptions. We're not Perry Mason or the Lincoln Lawyer, or any of the stuff that you see on TV. It doesn't happen that way. It's much less glamorous. And it's a lot of work in the trenches, a lot of lawyers serving as, therapists sometimes, sounding board.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a therapist, so not actually serving as a therapist, but part of our ethics say we're supposed to give both legal and practical advice. And so, I tell my clients, hey, if you're upset about something, don't call your social worker or don't call your ex or whatever and yell at them. Just call and leave me a voicemail and yell at me, yell at my voicemail, and because, oftentimes with the work that I do, family law and custody and foster care, like I said, you're dealing with people in probably the most stressful situation they've ever had in their life, or one of them. And so you're not dealing with people who are on the mountaintop. And so they're human just like everyone else. And so you've got to take things in context. And so, it's not all glitz and glamour. I don't drive a Lamborghini or even a nice Lincoln like Matthew McConaughey. But I've been fortunate to be able to make a living as an attorney. But it's the legal system is just different, I think, than most people think. It's more methodical. Oftentimes court cases are on their own time frame, and sometimes that time frame doesn't link up with how quickly or how slowly a case might play out. And so real world lawyering is much different than a 30 or 60-minute TV show. It's a whole lot different, really. And I don't know, sometimes we fight against that as attorneys because people think we might have a magic wand. And we really don't carry the magic wand, but we really as a whole, attorneys do their best to be zealous advocates for their clients and achieve their objectives, and just do the very best that we can at our job, just like you do in your profession, and hopefully everyone else does. You strive for excellence, and some days you meet the mark, and there are other days where you Monday morning quarterback yourself, like, man, I could have handled that case a little differently. And I don't think people really realize, how much like stress or personal performance a lawyer might go through, because it could just be you in the courtroom along with the other attorney and the judge, and you're sort of out on the island. And I want to achieve the perfect result for every client. And the reality is when you've got other factors in play, it doesn't always pan out that way. And so, I'm often, like, man, what could I have done differently? And I've had to have some, look in the mirror moments and some conversations with my wife. And, thankfully she's supportive. She's not a lawyer, so she sees the other side of things, and she's, encouraging, and it's it can be a thankless job some days, but I don't do it for the thanks. I do it like to pay it forward, really. And just like my purpose is, bigger than a thank you, honestly. So it's something that's eternal to me, really, but that's from, my core beliefs.
That's amazing. So glad you jumped on the show, by the way, John Paul. I mean, I did not know where this would go
Yeah.
before we started the whole thing.
Thank you, man. It's your idea. So
John Paul, you operate two firms here in town. Can you touch on that a little bit? Like the two firms you operate,
sure,
or manage?
So, I've got my law office and then the mediation company, which does dispute resolution and family law matters specifically. And so, the experience is sort of one and the same. I'm a lawyer for both businesses, but I just wear different hats. And so I do a lot of mediations for families who are in the middle of a divorce or custody battle. And, there I've got to wear the hat of a third party neutral and just trying to help people solve problems so that their kids can not be caught in the middle of conflict, improve communication, and try to solution for, like I said, every family is different. And so that is a completely different experience than being a litigator and picking a side and then going after it. But each of those things are rewarding. They're very rewarding, and it feels great when you can help families achieve an agreement through the mediation process so that they don't have to go through the stress of going to court and placing it in someone else's hands. And the law in Kansas is really set up in a way that allows parents in the middle of a custody case to maintain control of the outcome. If they can't figure out themselves, then the law is structured in a way that allows a third party neutral to try to help them maintain some control over their kids and their family's future. And so I'm a big proponent of that, thinking outside the box and trying to come up with solutions that are unique to each case. And I handle my litigation like that, and then I definitely handle the mediation services that I offer like that as well.
That's amazing. I feel like that aspect was not that well known to a lot of people.
Sure.
Because sometimes on Facebook you would see people vent, or people see different situations. They're going through similar situations where they feel like, hey, the law is like one-sided. The law is like favoring this person or this parent, which could be true to their cases, right? Maybe that was their experience or so on and so forth. But you just kind of clarify some of the stuff that I knew as a person if we didn't have this conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, being a lawyer can be very results driven. And so, if the result doesn't turn out a particular way for a particular client, then their perception of the legal system can be jaded. And so that goes back to setting up reasonable expectations with the client on what they can expect and just carrying yourself as a professional. So at the end of the day, the client, if they don't get exactly what they want, at least they can think back and say, well, you know what, John Paul or this attorney made this process, even though it was difficult, as easy as it could have been. They provided me with sound advice, and chips fell where they fell.
Yeah.
And so everyone has a different perception, but really attorneys need to do the work of maintaining the status of the profession. And, that is, we're professionals. We treat clients with respect. We treat opposing counsel with respect. We treat, non-lawyers, colleagues with respect, judges with respect. It's very important that we maintain a high standard of ethics, professionalism, morals, and because people really need to have faith that when they go see a lawyer or step in the courtroom, then that they're going to get a fair shake. It may not be exactly what they want, but they're going to get a fair shake. They're going to be heard. There's a study, I think, that came out recently that said that if a client doesn't get a particular outcome, they'll feel better about it if they feel like they were heard by the judge or whoever is deciding their case. And so we need to make sure that people are being heard, their voices being heard, and that the judge is clear about why they want what they want and why it makes sense in that particular case.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way, John Paul. I feel like you should do more videos on social media platform just to share that information with the people.
Well, it's sometimes I like to talk a lot, so it'd be hard to condense it into 30-second, TikTok clips or whatever,
100% understand. 100% understand.
I need someone to manage that for me.
There you go.
Yeah.
So John Paul, for the next 5 years, you operate two firms, and what's your vision on your law practice? What's your vision? What do you see yourself be at
Sure.
5 years from now?
That's a great question. Kind of it segues with where I'm at personally. Like my family and I are moving to Pottawatomie County, which is a neighboring county to Shawnee County. I'm going to maintain my law practice here, but I've brought on another attorney named Jessica Parks, who's doing a fantastic job to help me maintain my presence here in Shawnee County and in Northeast Kansas. And so really the goal is to continue expanding our service offering in Northeast Kansas and in more counties, especially expanding into the Pottawatomie, Riley County area. But just to continue doing the good work and the hard work, regardless of whether it's in Shawnee County, Pottawatomie County, Douglas County, or beyond. So I feel like hitting the 15-year mark, you start asking yourself, where do I want to go with this? I've been doing it for 15 years, and bringing on Jessica as another associate in my office this year really has been a breath of fresh air. It's given me the opportunity to mentor again and to, partner with someone else to serve our clients and to see successes and to learn from failures. And I continue to see our firm expand within reason, of course. Sky's always the limit.
Very excited for you.
You've got to dream big, but I think sky's the limit. You've got to dream big. You've got to believe big. You've got to, one of the things I believe in is that, like if you can figure it all yourself, you don't need faith, you don't need God, and so I think, we're here on this earth for a purpose that's bigger than us.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I just have to trust that, like, I don't have to have it all figured out, but I just need to dream big dreams and, let God direct the rest, for sure.
That's so amazing. That's so true. And for some reason, all the guests I've brought on this show, they all turn out to be believers.
No, really?
Yes.
There you go.
So I don't know if that's just
the
voice inside of me, or there's just, he's trying to use this platform to really show some of the, I would say, privileged conversations that I would have with friends and, clients and all that stuff. Because I feel like if I can use this platform, or we can use this platform to inspire a younger generation to either get into law practice or to become a really good attorney if they're already on the path to it. And that serves the purpose of this platform.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great thing that you're doing. And man, if I can make an impact on someone else's life, just one person, it's worth it. You want to see your kids and the younger generations outpace you. And, that gives me great joy, so if I can help someone else, whether it's just mentoring them and making a decision about whether to go to law school or helping them, actually with a case or setting up a business, which I do occasionally, then that's awesome. I really encourage people to just think big picture, to dream big, and the sky really is the limit. We're very fortunate in the United States that if a person wants to do something, typically it's achievable. Of course, it takes a village, but typically it's achievable. And there's just so many resources out there that, if I can pair someone else up with resources that they wouldn't know about, if they hadn't met me, then, I'm more than happy to try to help some people succeed, for sure.
That's huge. So if you guys want to achieve your American dream, so give John Paul a call.
There you go.
There you go. I truly believe in that. I believe that 100% what you just say, because if you put your mind to it, something that you want to achieve on this planet, I truly believe there's no better place than here that you can achieve.
Yeah, 100%.
And John Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap this thing up.
Absolutely.
And if you guys have more questions, reach out to John Paul's website. He's got an amazing website. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for your time.